Welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the Veil with me, Alura, where we explore the spiritual world. Please forgive me as I have to speak a little low in tone as I've been suffering from a swollen throat that I've had to put my own healing process off for in order to do healings for others. So I have to speak very gently in order to get through this video, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to share this information with you. On a side note, before we get into today's story, I just wanted to add that I hope everyone is enjoying the new content. For many, many years, I have had a great deal of difficulty getting my message, my work, and my vision out there. And the world is evolving, and there are many tools out there that we can use in order to help ourselves in being more creative. And so I've been experimenting with some of them, trying to find what works for me, what doesn't. I have a very busy schedule, trying to go back to school, being a mother to children, and working for a lot of people and trying to do their readings, their healings, and courses. That making this content means everything in the world to me, and I wouldn't want to miss out on being able to do it for anything in the world, to show my love of God, the knowledge that I have, the vision that I bring. And so while I have been using new tools, I hope that you won't be judgmental and that you'll just bear with me as I kind of find my own footing in an evolving world where everything that we are looking at is just so very different. AI can be a very useful tool as long as it's not being used as a deceptive tool. Let's get into today's story. I have two stories for you today. Living as a psychic is unsettling enough without having to see ghosts everywhere. They're not confined to one place as many people believe, because spirits drift through streets, stores, homes, their world overlapping ours in a parallel dimension. The dead are all around us, their energies lingering in the air. Some people think ghosts are tied to specific locations, but that's a little bit of a misconception. The spirit world isn't bound by our physical rules. It operates under its own dimensional laws. Unless you're psychic, you might not see, hear, or feel them, but their presence can still affect your thoughts, your mood, even actions if their energy is strong enough. I've always been sensitive to these energies, experiencing out-of-body journeys and astral projections since childhood, as I've explained. I've traveled through lower spiritual realms just in order to reach higher ones, during those times often encountering unsettling presences along the way. These experiences have really shown me at a lot of times that the veil between worlds is very thin, especially now when negativity in the world seems to attract darker spirits. As Christ said, casting out one demon can invite 7 worse ones. Evil spirits often work together, drawn to collective beliefs or tragedies. The more people focus on a haunting, the stronger its imprint becomes, like a memory etched into the Akashic Records does. And this brings me to one of my next experiences, the Atco Ghost. Growing up in West Berlin, New Jersey, just miles from Atco, I heard about the legend often. Atco, near the haunted Wharton State Forest, home to tales of the Jersey Devil and the abandoned Badstow Village, is a hotspot for paranormal stories. It always had been. The Atco Ghost tale centered on a boy who, while chasing his ball across the road, was struck and killed by a car. Details about his age or the year of when it happened would vary in the stories, but the ritual to summon the ghost always remained consistent. You had to drive to the end of the road where the pavement met the dirt, turn around, park by the third light post on the left, flash your high beams 3 specific times, and then wait there in the dark. As a teenager, I was eager to test the legend. I mean, small town life was boring. We had very little to do. Chasing a ghost story would really be a lot of fun. My first attempt with friends was a bust. We followed the ritual, we waited an hour, but we saw nothing. But as a psychic, I couldn't let it go. I had to try again, and I did feel very watchful eyes from the woods and a heavy, eerie energy. Disappointed but intrigued, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something there. My friend at the time had dismissed it as urban legend, but I sensed more to the story. The next summer, I got another chance. I was hanging out with a girl named Amy. I wasn't very close to her, but occasionally spent time with her. We walked to the local ShopRite to chat with a friend of mine named Brian, a popular guy from our neighborhood who worked there. I had grown up with him. And when Brian couldn't get off of work to hang out, his co-worker Lance, a humble teenager with a white convertible, offered to drive us around. We were really excited, and especially excited for an adventure. I brought up the Atco Ghost. Lance had claimed that he had seen it, and that brought up a great debate. I shared my psychic experiences and convinced him to go revisit the site to investigate. So we drove to the same secluded road. We crossed over railroad tracks, past a few scattered houses, before reaching the wooded stretch. Lance followed the ritual. He turned the car around at the dirt path. He parked by the third light post. He flashed those high beams 3 times, and we waited there in silence. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning, a very small one, but one indeed, struck a telephone pole several telephone poles ahead on our street. And in that flash, we saw the ghostly boy chasing a white ball across the road. The image was vivid but fleeting, like a snapshot burned into our minds. Stunned, Lance admitted that he had lied about seeing the ghost before coming up there. He'd heard the stories, but he was just really trying to hype it up for us. And this was his real first encounter. Amy, wide-eyed in the back seat, confirmed that she had seen it too. But we sat there in silence trying to process what just happened. I mean, I knew, but it was still really shocking. The night sparked a whole ghost hunting partnership with Lance, who really believed my psychic energy amplified the experience. And so we would go on to explore other haunted sites, but the Atco Ghost stayed with me. People wanted to know, was it the trapped soul of a boy killed in an accident? No. As a psychic, I definitely would have felt an overwhelming sense of grief if a child's spirit was bound there. Instead, I saw that this was a darker energy, fed by years of thrill seekers visiting a site where someone actually had been hit by a car. The legend, fueled by collective belief, created a psychic imprint, an echo of a tragedy, not a trapped soul. Evil spirits are often drawn to that type of attention, and they can amplify manifestations for those who are sensitive enough to perceive them. The Atco Ghost isn't just a story. It shows us how beliefs shape the unseen world around us. And there really is something to see there. If you want to go see it, I'll leave the address in the description. We can definitely verify that it's real. But more than just a trapped soul, it's just memory stuck there in time, fueled by the energies of others who keep that memory going. So with Halloween nearing, I'm sharing another eerie tale from my ghost hunting days with Lance, my new friend from the Atco Ghost adventure. We had unforgettable paranormal experiences, including one at an abandoned house on Quaker Bridge Road, and that also was in Wharton State Forest. One boring Friday night, Samantha and I were at my house, broke, kind of restless, young teenagers. Our families have very deep mystical roots. My grandfather studied demonology, and my grandmother on my dad's side was immersed in religious and esoteric teachings, although very confused by them. Growing up, we both saw shadow people, real entities that we encountered when fully awake, which I've shared about. And our shared love for the paranormal, especially in fall, made us crave a little spooky adventure. Not a terrifying one, but a little spookiness. It was a year after seeing the Atco Ghost with Lance, and so I told him, would you like to go off and explore another location? And he suggested a old house on Quaker Ridge Road, rumored to be haunted by a family murdered by their father, who then hung himself in the attic. The grim story really made me uneasy. I avoid places that are tied to violent death, as they draw low vibrational spirits that often feed on tragedy. Unlike the Atco Ghost, though, which was more of an imprint rather than a trapped soul, this tale gave me a pause. Lance insisted, though, and promised to get me home by my curfew, and he was really eager for my psychic abilities to verify the rumors. Was there a murder or not? So with Samantha for support, I agreed to go. We drove deep into the Wharton State Forest along dark, winding roads flanked by dense trees. Quaker Bridge Road was a narrow dirt path with just 2 houses on it. It was a manor and a half-burnt 18th century home that was fenced off to deter intruders like us. Lance parked near this debilitating house, and there was this heavy, oppressive energy. It really hit me immediately. The bare windows stared like hollow eyes at me, and I told Samantha I didn't want to go in, but Lance led us through a hole in the fence to get us inside. Once we were in there, the air buzzed with a sinister vibe, not murder, but something darker, like occult rituals, animal sacrifices. I didn't like the energy of it. The house was empty, the back was collapsed from a fire, leaving a small sitting room, a dining area, and peeling wallpaper over crumbling plaster. The graffiti was all over. It scarred all the walls. It was proof of other trespassers. As we admired a hand-carved fireplace, though, Lance startled us, reappearing from a shadowy corner. We were all kind of taking a look at the house and had noticed that there was this really awesome architecture inside there, if it wasn't already damaged or burnt. And as we were looking at it, he came up from behind, just jump scared us, and we turned at him. And then we turned back to look at the fireplace, but suddenly we saw tiny red handprints, like children's hands, smeared in blood, that appeared on the wall and the mantle. Samantha and I froze, confirming, that those handprints hadn't been there moments before. Lance saw them too, but when we looked again, they vanished. It wasn't a trick of light, there was no projector, nobody put them there, they were just there and then simply gone. Then there was a loud thud from upstairs, and we thought we were alone in this house. There were no other cars, no people nearby. And the noise wasn't a prank, it wasn't deliberate. Lance turned pale. He urged us to go check up the upstairs and leave, and I reluctantly agreed. I wanted to get out of there fast. I went up a narrow servant stairs that was spared by the fire, and it led to an intact upper floor. And there was a massive pentagram up there with a devil's image spray painted in the center, which confirmed what I had sensed of satanic activity. I demanded that we leave, but Lance wanted to go to the attic. He wanted to see if there was a murder-suicide in the house. He kept pressuring me to go further. Already I felt this unheavenly energy, and I didn't like what I was seeing, but to please my friend and to try to get out of there more quickly, I followed him up there. In the attic, there was a rope that hung from the rafters. It was scary looking, but it wasn't proof of a suicide story. So I went downstairs, past a bedroom, and then I got struck in my psychic visions. I saw a family coughing, ravaged by illness, an older man, a woman, children, and an elderly woman who were all suffering. I told Lance and my cousin Samantha they weren't murdered, they died of tuberculosis. That's definitely what I saw. The house wasn't haunted by violence, but by their tragic loss and the dark rituals that followed in there afterwards, drawn by lingering sorrow. Outside, we climbed back through the hole in the fence, but this psychic pull took over me, and it drew me deeper into the woods. Everybody kept saying, "Where are you going, Allie?" But ignoring Lance and Samantha's questions and protests, I followed this dark path, my flashlight kind of revealing a small little church and cemetery hidden back there among the trees, about a football field or so away. And among them, there were a few dozen tombstones. And then I just started going through each one by one, and I found a row. And among that row was a few of tombstones that had had a family buried in a row, a father, a mother, an elderly woman, two children, their deaths clustered within days, as I had seen within my visions, and definitely of the same family, the death dates confirming ages, and the date of death confirming that they had died within that same week of one another. And so that was all that I needed, for that confirmation. Not that I didn't trust my psychic vision to begin with, but I wanted proof, and there it wasn't. Something had led me right to it. And so I was able to show Lance and Samantha, and they saw that what I had said was true. The house had a terrible energy, a whole family that had died from tuberculosis. The elderly woman was probably a grandparent. Their connection to the house was very strong, not malevolent as much from them, but rooted the home in love that they had built. This was one that was tied to nearby Batstow Village, and I believe they had put a lot of heart and soul into that house, and then suffered and died in it. And here were people just, disgracing it with terrible satanic rituals, and more than likely partying and other horrific things throughout the years. So we returned to the car after that in silence. The family's tragedy really weighed heavy on me. Lance was relieved to know the truth, but he was a little shook up. As we drove away, I did turn and look back at the house, and I saw a ghostly figure in the upstairs window. An old woman with white hair and a Gibson bun, wearing a high-collared dress. Her faint apparition flickered, but it was really unmistakable. I definitely saw her, and I just took out my phone really quick and snapped a photo, and I sent it over to have it developed. But after I had it developed, a lot of bad luck started happening in my home. My house had its own paranormal activity already, but this was different. It was like a spiritual attachment. And so I cleansed myself to get rid of that energy, and I destroyed the photo to break the connection. Years later, during my further explorations of Batstow Village, I went down Quaker Bridge Road again, and the house was gone. It was probably demolished due to it being half burnt down, the terrible trespassers and how they treated it, and all of the graffiti and satanic symbols, which were signs of dark rituals that drew a lot of unsavory types of characters, disrespecting the family's honor. I had prayed for many, many years, Lord, please help this family find rest. And the love that once filled the home, by this family was devastated by the illness itself. And so those prayers, I felt, were answered as the house has been torn down, and it really brought me peace, as if my prayers for their souls and the cleansing of the attachment had in God's own way allowed the property to be cleared through the fire. The family deserved respect, not the intrusion of thrill seekers and occultists, and we weren't disrespecting the place. Lance, Samantha, and me, who just explored innocently without causing any harm, brought good intention, and we didn't draw on anything or have any graffiti. We weren't like those that left the pentagrams or defiled the place of profound loss. And with the house gone, I knew that the family finally found rest. But I wondered, why do people make up so many crazy stories just for the fun of it? Here, a family had all suffered and died together, having to watch each other die one by one from an illness in a home that they had built in love. And in some ways, is that really any worse than murder? I mean, it's just as dark. It's just different. Either way, I was glad to get the psychic answers. And Wharton State Forest is filled with all kinds of very spooky paranormal energies. Like I said, from Atco all the way throughout Chemung Township out here, there are so many tales of paranormal hauntings and experiences, and so it's a wonderful place to explore. That's why they call it Weird New Jersey. Definitely has a lot of weird things, and I think there's a magazine you can check out too that helps you kind of find some of those places, and I've been to many of them myself, and I love doing this series because now it gives me the opportunity to talk about them with all of you. I'm glad the family found rest, and those are my two tales from Beyond the Veil. The handprints, I believe, were a sign from heaven, just trying to show me that these were little kids coughing. Tuberculosis causes a great deal of coughing and, spitting up of blood. And it was so fast, this image that appeared in front of us. And I believe it was like a mass collective image that we all shared. And like I've said many times before, and this isn't to place any high emphasis upon myself, but I do generate a lot of psychic energy, and I do believe that it amplifies paranormal experiences when, we go on them. And so we were all able to see it. It was very quick, but it was there. I would have seen it regardless either way, but sometimes it's good to have these witnesses. It really is. I wish I had them with me to talk about these things in these videos with, but sadly everyone has either passed away in my life or they've all long moved on. But I wish them all the best of luck, whether in the spirit world or living. Thank you, and you all have a wonderful spooky season, and be safe out there. Hopefully we'll have time for one more of these videos, and we'll start getting into angels and other beautiful beings that I've met too. I just wanted to kind of tap into that Halloween energy and have fun with it with some of my true live experiences there in the scarier part of the spirit realm. God bless you all. Thanks for watching.